Welcome, dear viewer, to the United States of Europe. Yes, this week our special guest is Professor Jim Mathis to talk about the TTIP alarm. Hi, it's me, Greg Shapiro, your presenter, and as every week we say welcome, giving the EU the respect they deserve by making fun of them just like everybody else. Or to put it another way, I seriously believe that the best way to lend credibility to the European Commission is to subject them to daily or weekly harassment. Let us know if you're out there, subscribe on YouTube, and of course share the link and use the hashtag GSUSE. Let us know you're out there. And our guest today in the studio is a professor from the University of Amsterdam, a professor of international economic law, associate professor at the UvA. You have spoken recently in Brussels, and specifically about the whole TTIP issue. Do you go there a lot? How do you travel to Brussels now?
We use the train.
Okay, so it does still work.
It still does work. Yes.
And good. And you were there just when was it? Last week?
We were down there 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
And giving a presentation to DG Trade. That's Directorate General Trade. Mm-hmm. They're the ones who negotiate the trade agreements.
Yeah. So you're an insider.
For the European Union. I'm an academic. I study from the outside.
Okay.
And sometimes they let me in to give a little talk and have some back and forth.
Well, this is going to be good. We're going to find out how evil or not evil this whole issue is. It's hard to find a sort of a fair and balanced, if you will, version of the TTIP discussion. So we'll get back to the professor in just a moment. Where's Putin? After canceling a week's worth of appearances, the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, is reportedly not dead, but perhaps, according to the rumors, he was off spending some private time supporting a romantic interest and perhaps fathering a child. Meanwhile, for some extra rumors, can't help but notice Top Gear host Jeremy Clarkson's whereabouts also unknown during his suspension from the BBC. Rumors, romantic interest, who knows? No one knows for sure what caused the old school meat-eating Jeremy Clarkson to be suspended from his show on the BBC, or what he'll do next if reinstated. But like another old school famous iconoclast from France, maybe Jeremy Clarkson and Gérard Depardieu might be happier hanging out with Putin wherever he is in Russia. Meanwhile, the war of words continues to escalate between Germany and Greece as Greece's finance minister, Yanis Varoufakis, has attempted to praise his German counterpart, Wolfgang Schäuble, but the German media only seems to report that Varoufakis' casual style is meant as some kind of insult. And last week, Schäuble gave an interview apparently trying to praise Greece as not naive, but in the Greek media, it was reported as foolishly naive. In all, instead of any factual media in Germany or Greece, you might as well just read the rumors on Twitter. In fact, from Bild Zeitung to Catemerini, it's surprising that these guys haven't already made fun of just generally awkward names, like Greece's deputy prime minister, Yanis Dragasakis. For the Germans, Dragasakis is probably Mr. Dragas for delaying the budget negotiations, but for the Greeks, whenever he comes up with any kind of compromise, no doubt they'll call him Mr. Askis. Yes, according to German media, it's the Greeks who are breaking all the rules and they just want to get away with it. But did you notice this tiny item from the back pages last week? Who was it that settled a US lawsuit for rate fixing? Was it the Greeks? No, it was Commerzbank from Germany. Maybe take a look in the mirror, Frankfurt, but not the Spiegel like the rest of the German media. The Spiegel might be kind of distorted. At issue for Greece is an end to the spot check visits by EU bureaucrats to audit the Greek economy. But the Eurogroup and the IMF continue to insist that unannounced spot check visits are the key. And hey, if that's the case, then maybe this Iranian nuclear deal might work. In response, Republicans in the US Senate sent a direct letter to the Germans warning them that the Greeks are not to be trusted. Thanks for that, guys. And now, this week's good news, bad news. This week, the dangerous game of history teaches us. The bad news is Anytime I hear that phrase being used by politicians, I get nervous. History teaches us that the phrase history teaches us can be used to apply whatever selective and convenient version of history that serves your purpose. And nowhere is that more dangerous than in Europe. Specifically, running out of money with his back against the wall, new Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras said that he might be forced to reopen the case of a potential $3 billion in war reparations from Germany to Greece from World War II. The rest of EU replied, "Don't mention the war." The good news, maybe this can be the impetus to force some difficult issues to be discussed. The Greek Defense Minister Panos Kamenos wondered aloud, why is it that Greece should be unduly burdened with all these illegal African immigrants? The bad news, he then suggested that maybe they get shipped to Germany. Germany responded by threatening to suspend the free travel rights of Greek citizens. Or for that matter, maybe just require Greek citizens in Germany to wear a blue and white star. The good news is, we then moved on from World War II, only to invoke World War I. Alex Tsipras has tried to garner sympathy from the Germans by comparing today's austerity enforcement to the humiliations of enforcement of austerity that Germany had to deal with after World War I. The bad news is, history teaches us that trying to bond with the Germans on an emotional basis is not a winning strategy. And before Germany can deal with past war issues, now they've got to deal with some neo-Nazis. The mayor of Eastern Germany, the Eastern German town of Troglitz, was forced to step down this past week when authorities could not protect him and his family from threats from right-wing anti-immigrant parties. The good news is Germany refused to acknowledge them as neo-Nazis. The bad news is when these right-wing anti-immigrant parties signed their online post Heil Hitler, yeah, that's pretty clear. What is going on in the heart of the EU? This past week, Belgium planned to issue a special euro coin commemorating Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo 200 years ago. The good news is they were overruled by France. The bad news is, instead of promoting euro unity, Belgium, the center of the EU, is dredging up old military history. History teaches us not a great idea. I mean, next, can Germany issue a euro coin commemorating using Belgium as a side street into France in World War II? Or maybe Britain can issue a coin for dominating Scotland hundreds of years ago. Or next, Belgium will issue a coin commemorating the surrender of the French all last century. History teaches us, maybe can we just keep the euros boring? As promised, we've got a professor here to discuss the TTIP alarm, but first, let's go to our correspondent with the headlines.
The headlines.
David Duff, our Irish correspondent. What is the news from Ireland right now?
Well, drugs were made legal for 48 hours. Homosexual
Not on
marriage
purpose.
No, not on purpose, well, as far as we know. Homosexual marriage was made the only marriage you could have in Ireland for a little while, heterosexual marriage being made illegal. And in concurrence with drugs and the homosexual marriage thing happening, the GDP rose by 4.8%, which was
So there's some connection between GHB and GDP.
Yes, I would think so. Both of them have a good ring to them when they're being used in positive terms.
And did you say, and what was the cause of this? It was translating from Gaelic to English?
No, that was with the gay marriage thing. With regards to the Drugs Act, what actually happened was there was amendments to the 1977 Act, ministerial amendments, which were not technically legal. So the drugs that were added on since 1977 and made illegal didn't count. So basically every drug since 1977 that was added under this act was actually technically legal.
And so March 17th is next week, or is
yeah,
this?
I know.
Yeah.
Irish people were pretty annoyed about that because if this had happened 1 week later, it would have been the best Patrick's Day ever.
One more question, and that is, we were just talking to our correspondent in Greece about how maybe things are improving, but still there are so many protests. And I would say that, from what I understand, Ireland has a similar economic situation where the taxpayers have been burdened with this enormous, with the responsibility of the bailout, and yet there are no huge protests. Why is that?
I think because everyone knew this drug thing was coming up, they were kind of, looking forward to it. They said, yeah, we'll have a good time with that. But no, the real reason I think is because Irish people are kind of, what's the word, lazy, I suppose. We like to complain and we don't really like to do a lot. We're in a pub having our pints. But with the water thing, that did kind of steer people the wrong way, got in their gears. And they actually decided to take a bit of a stand, not too much of a stand now because it's kind of petering out at the moment, the protests. But
I know there was worry that if they would tax the water, then there would be no more washing or flushing.
Well, that was one thing. The government had a big debate about the legislation that was being passed, and there was a big worry and a concern that some people in Ireland won't wash themselves or flush a toilet. Now, being from Ireland and living with my father for so long, I've seen people that do that, so it's not really that much of an issue.
Thank you, David Duff. Here we are back with a professor, an associate professor of international law from the University of Amsterdam, and Jim Mathis. Hi.
Hi. Hi, Greg.
We know some people don't know you very well as I do. Well, we know, actually, before we ask any questions, I'm going to get into the 60 seconds for all 6 questions. The first thing off the top of your head is exactly the right answer.
If I have something on the top of my head.
Exactly.
Right?
We'll see. Okay. 60 seconds begins. Where are you from?
Peoria, Illinois.
Exactly.
The
I'm
center
from
of the
Chicago.
known universe.
And where do you go to when you want the perfect vacation?
Siesta Key, Sarasota, Florida.
Really? Back in the U.S. Okay.
Sandy Cove.
Do you have any pets?
I have a cat and 2 birds.
Thank you. Oh, there's tension in the house. Boxers or briefs?
Did Clinton answer that one?
I think he did.
Boxers.
Boxers, fine. And you have a background in law. Do you have a favorite courtroom drama?
I'm old school. It has to be Perry Mason.
Perry Mason.
Okay.
Okay. And do you own a car?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of car?
I own a 1972 Volkswagen camper bus.
Wow. The classic hippie hangout bed.
And it's the color Oranje.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you bought it over here in the Netherlands?
I bought it over here in the Netherlands.
Very nice. How long have you been in the Netherlands now?
I've been here since 1990.
Okay, okay. And then, in fact, we were talking earlier about the 90s being a time when some of these huge trade negotiations really started. Now, if you do a search for TTIP right now online, TTIP, Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, you feel like the world is about to collapse. Aren't all trade agreements just another nail in the coffin of workers' rights and consumer protections?
They certainly don't have to be. And it depends upon the balance of power between the parties that are negotiating it, the territories negotiating it. There are trade agreements where a very powerful country negotiates with a very weak country, and the agreements are not balanced.
Now that we are talking about the general TTIP and people are paying attention to it, is that a good thing, or is it easier to get things done behind closed doors? We're gonna check this out with a quick video and figure out what other people are saying about this issue right now.
Okay.
The Greens' opposition to TTIP is based on our experience. We've had a big battle in the European Parliament in the past to protect health, social services from being treated like any other service.
Partout en Europe, partout aux États-Unis, les consommateurs, les syndicats, des entreprises, toutes les organisations de la société civile, les régions, les mairies s'opposent à la perte de souveraineté.
We're really concerned when we see the state investor dispute settlement being part of this treaty.
Cette capacité des entreprises à attaquer les États lorsque notre protection de l'environnement, notre protection de la santé des salariés, des consommateurs remet en cause leurs bénéfices.
We don't want to see that work of democracy undermined by secret, unelected, unaccountable individuals.
TTIP, c'est toujours aussi opaque, c'est toujours l'incapacité des citoyens à savoir ce qui se passe dans ces négociations et c'est un piège extraordinaire contre la démocratie, contre nos choix de société.
Major protests. Yeah, the Greens are out marching. There's more rallying and unification. It's bigger than maybe a World Trade Organization, a WTO protest. Well, yeah. Why now? Why are these protests happening now?
One of the reasons why these agreements are more controversial than they used to be, is that they come in closer to people's domestic rules, huh?
Right.
It's not just about the tariff taxes that are charged at the border.
No.
They come in and they can approach domestic law, environmental protection laws, consumer protection laws, the way we regulate our healthcare systems, the way we regulate our water supply systems.
Obviously, there should be benefits for the consumers, and yet now we're more focused on what rights are we giving up?
Yeah, this one is gets a lot of attention. On the European side, it's interesting because Europe has strong environmental protection laws. We have strong food safety laws.
Yeah.
We actually, European Union has high standard rules.
Right.
And my own feeling is that European law can't be changed by a trade agreement.
Workers' rights and consumer protections, you think they'll still be there?
I think they're fine. ISDS itself, that means investor-state dispute settlement.
Right.
Investor state. In other words, the investor can sue the state. These aren't new. In Europe, Germany has more investor state treaties in their investment treaties than any other country on earth. My hope for this agreement is, if they get this agreement, that they're going to make a balanced dispute settlement clause. That means one where an arbitral body has got to look both at the societal value of the law, the chain that's being challenged, and what there is the value in that, and what is the real legitimate objective the government has of changing a law.
Okay.
As compared to whether the investor has been ripped off, expropriated,
Well,
or
so it sounds
treated
like,
unfairly.
Yeah, but that's what we have already, basically. I mean, so you're saying it wouldn't change that much. Isn't there something shady going on with, like, do we need to give more powers to the multinationals?
Arguably not, but we're developed economies. If you talk to Dutch economists and people who understand economic policy in the Netherlands, they'll tell you that the future of the Netherlands is not in the old traditional manufacturing base and agriculture bases that have long been protected.
Right.
This is a service economy.
Yeah. With environmentalists who are concerned that we're giving out, we're giving away these environmental laws. We've also got a country like China, who is flooding the markets with these cheap solar panels and making it impossible for clean energy to get off the ground in the West. Is that an example of the kind of the differences in regulation that are holding industry back, even if it's private, even if it's multinationals?
We don't need a trade agreement to operate commercial defense if producers undercut their own price structure.
So again,
and dump products in our market.
So we already have these laws.
But you bring up a point that that does flow from this. There is an aspect of what the U.S. and the EU, I think, are up to. Part of the motivation, they've expressed it this way, is that the U.S. and the EU are leaders in the global trading system. And there's an idea that they set the rules. And to the extent that they can find the new patterns of how international economy works and how the new rules in the future can work, we can make the pattern that will flow through the rest of the international economy. In other words, maybe China will also play by those rules.
Well, obviously, people are worried that there might be a bad precedent being set right now. And in fact, that just gets back to the basic question of the protests as well. By necessity, these negotiations are happening behind closed doors, maybe less than ever before. Is that good or bad for the precedent?
It's the fact that negotiations occur in secret completely, from one perspective, completely delegitimizes these agreements. This is secret, so therefore it cannot be positive. They must be giving something away that belongs to society because they're in secret. But they are in secret. All negotiations are in secret. the political negotiations, security negotiations, the negotiations going on with Iran now over the nuclear program.
Sure.
They're not doing those in public.
No.
All right?
Yeah.
Negotiators don't work in public. But what we're trying to learn how to do in Europe, and I think that this agreement is actually a good example of it, is the Commission saying we want to collect everybody who has anything to say about this. We want to collect their opinions about this ISDS or about the services sectors or about this. And then we are going to give you a framework. Here's how we are going to approach these negotiations, and here's what we want.
Yeah.
And here's what we're not going to give away. We're not going to change our environmental rules. We're not going to do this. In other words, they're trying to put more transparency at the front end of the process.
Okay.
So people can say, all right, now the negotiators have to come back on that remit. That's their remit. That's their frame.
Yeah.
Now we're going to be a little bit more comfortable about letting them go and not feel that what they're doing is basically going out and selling away the store.
Well, we talked about the parameters as well. I mean, and that gets us to the question of what happens when, if this TTIP does go through and all the EU countries have to ratify it. What if Greece says, we need a negotiating chip. We're not going to ratify this TTIP.
We are in a European Union that has a lot more accountability than it did 25 years ago, and we have an EU Parliament that has the power to ratify trade agreements.
Which is relatively new, isn't it?
That's new.
Yeah.
It's new. And it's a very important power.
Yet it seems like you're saying that all of these interests are being represented at the table, and that there is more transparency than we've ever seen before. And it also sounds like there are precedents for, we're talking about the American Trans-Pacific Partnership, which may go through before TTIP. There's a whole EU-Canada thing. So this is already happening. It might not be the worst thing in the world. And yet, if we want to know more about you and finding out your specific positions, where can we find you?
I'm in a research institute at the University of Amsterdam called the Amsterdam Center of International Law.
Professor Jim Mathis from the University of Amsterdam, thanks very much.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time. Don't forget to look us up on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. And thanks for watching.